So, various conclusions. Yes, bees are in decline. These declines are well documented, they are real, and supported by good, strong scientific evidence, which is the only evidence that counts. The drivers of decline are many and varied depending on the species. The effects of pollinator loss could be absolutely huge. So is it a catastrophe? Not yet. But it could be. On the positive side, we are aware of the problem, awareness is being raised all the time, and people are taking action. That won't fix anything if you recognise a problem. And that, at least, is being done.
But you can see from the relatively crooked and narrow streets of the city of Rome as they look from above today, you can see that, again, the city grew in a fairly ad hoc way, as I mentioned. It wasn't planned all at once. It just grew up over time, beginning in the 8th century BC. Now, this is interesting because what we know about the Romans is when they were left to their own devices, and they could build a city from scratch, they didn't let it grow in an ad hoc way. They structured it in a very methodical way that was basically based on military strategy, military planning. The Romans, they couldn't have conquered the world without obviously having a masterful military enterprise, and they everywhere they went on their various campaigns, their various military campaigns, they would build camps, and those camps were always laid out in a very geometric plan along a grid, usually square or rectangular. So when we begin to see the Romans building their ideal Roman city, they turn to that so-called castrum or military camp design.
Why do we need to recycle water? Because we don't generate much new water. Chemically, the process of generating water, which is to basically taking hydrogen and oxygen and burning them to produce water, is not a process that happens a lot anymore. So in terms of our total volume of water in the world, yes, it is changing, but it's not changing significantly relative to the rate at which we are using or demanding fresh new water.
Now, there are a lot of different areas of technology involved in water recycling, and we are later in the interview going to get to industrial use and the reclamation of sewage. What about in the home at the moment? What sort of technology is being utilised in the home when we talk about water recycling?
Well, very little on average. Typically, in a modern home, we turn on the tap, we take a glass of water, we probably, in turning on that tap, flush 10 glasses of water down the sink. We take a shower, we use fresh water, we do a whole range of things, and there is nominally very little recycling of that. It goes down the drain and it goes off to a wastewater treatment plant. There is actually very, very little recycling at a local level. People don't actually say, well, I'm now going to take the water I just used, put it through a sophisticated process and reuse it and have a closed loop. It's not a closed loop in the home.
The question today of, what makes a luxury brand and how do we distinguish it is very hard to answer. The standard business response is to say they are more exclusive. And we get exclusivity by having high price and relatively small amounts of the product available. The reality, however, of luxury brands is they're sold in their millions, and in some cases are not priced that much higher than the standard output. The only way I can really answer your question is to say it's all relative. As you said in your introduction, it wasn't that long ago in Australia that we would have considered 2 televisions to be a luxury, or even further back, 1 colour television. And you can make a strong argument, for example, that Starbucks in China right now is a luxury purchase because of its cost, because of how frequently it's purchased by many people. So I think the long answer is a complicated one, but the answer is it depends who you talk to. I think in the business community, what we would say is there are a small cluster of more expensive brands which have a distinct strategy that we would identify as being luxury brands. And they start with the Rolls Royces and the Tiffany's and the Louis Vuittons of the world. And I think that tends to be how we see them.
What is globalization? Globalization can usually be conceived as a process or set of processes which embodies a transformation in the spatial organization of social relations and transactions, generating transcontinental or integrational flows and networks of activity, interaction, and power. It is characterized by 4 types of change. First, it involves a stretching of social, political, and economic activities across political frontiers, regions, and continents. Second, it suggests the intensification or the growing magnitude of interconnectedness and flows of trade, investment, finance, migration, culture, etc. Third, the growing extensity and intensity of global interconnectedness can be linked to a speeding up of global interactions and processes, as the evolution of worldwide systems of transport and communication increases the velocity of the diffusion of ideas, goods, information, capital, and people. Fourth, the growing extensity, intensity, and velocity of global interactions can be associated with their deepening impact, such that the effects of distant events can be highly significant elsewhere, and even the most local developments may come to have enormous global consequences. In this sense, the boundaries between domestic matters and global affairs can become increasingly blurred. Globalization has 3 definitions. There are more trade transactions, communications, services, and multinational companies across the border. There are more travels and cooperation between different countries. A global and integrated economic system has been formed in the world. One country does not depend on itself only, but countries interact more with each other in terms of production and consumption. We have a long history to research on hospital design and patient recovery. A long time ago, people began to study therapeutic environments. For example, in 1855, Florence Nightingale recognized that color and form enhanced a patient's recovery. They found that fresh air and sunlight had positive impacts, and architecture also played an important part. Views of the hospital's backyards can help patients rest well and sleep fast, and can also help relieve their stress and pain easily because of the pleasant feelings caused by nature. Being visited by friends or family members can help patients be better off sooner, as well as living alone in a single room. 90% of patients and nurses in hospitals agree that well-designed hospital environment links to recovery rates. We are living through one of the greatest of scientific endeavors, the attempt to understand the most complex object in the universe, the brain. Scientists are accumulating vast amounts of data about structure and function in a huge array of brains, from the tiniest to our own. Tens of thousands of researchers are devoting massive amounts of time and energy to thinking about what brains do, and astonishing new technology, including computers and artificial intelligence, is enabling us to both describe and manipulate that activity. Humans can tell computers what to do and how to do by giving the meaning of certain words. Computers can operate as programmed and develop systems and symbols. Computers work by analyzing messages into bytes, and this function is similar to human brains. Both human brains and computers are symbol processors, so computers have potential to bring artificial intelligence. The ocean provides habitat for 98% fish, the source of protein feeding 4.8 billion people. But human activities and climate change have left corals bleached in some oceans. There are many species of fish that are endangered. The government set up a network called MPA Marine Campaign, in which countries and organizations have been collaborating with each other to protect the environment for 32 years. A marine protected area, an MPA, is a zone designated and managed to protect marine habitats and species for the good of the ocean, society, economy, and culture. Within MPAs, human activities such as fishing, vessel traffic, and tourism are regulated. MPAs can come in the form of a fully protected marine reserve, a moderately protected marine park, or a no-take zone, among others. But MPA is faced with lots of challenges, as some developing countries lack management and resources and feel excluded.
Today, we turn our attention to one of the ocean's most magnificent and vital ecosystems, coral reefs. These underwater rainforests are not just spectacular in their beauty, but they are crucial for the health of our planet. Coral reefs, though covering less than 1% of the ocean floor, support an estimated 25% of all marine species. They provide critical habitats for a diverse range of sea life, from fish to invertebrates. For instance, the Great Barrier Reef, a World Heritage Site, is home to thousands of species, some of which are found nowhere else on Earth. However, these ecosystems are under threat. Climate change, pollution, and overfishing have led to widespread coral bleaching and reef degradation. This loss has profound implications, not just for marine life but also for human communities that rely on reefs for food, tourism, and coastal protection. Preserving coral reefs is more than an environmental concern. It's a crucial step in maintaining the ocean's biodiversity and our own livelihoods. It requires global efforts, from reducing carbon emissions to implementing sustainable fishing practices. By protecting these vibrant ecosystems, we're not only safeguarding marine life, but also ensuring a sustainable future for generations to come.
Most people think of astronomers as people who spend their time in cold observatories peering through telescopes every night. In fact, a typical astronomer spends most of his or her time analyzing data and may only be at the telescope a few weeks of the year. Some astronomers work on purely theoretical problems and never use a telescope at all. You might not know how rarely images are viewed directly through telescopes. The most common way to observe the skies is to photograph them. The process is very simple. First, a photographic plate is coated with a light-sensitive material. The plate is positioned so that the image received by the telescope is recorded on it. Then the image can be developed, enlarged, and published so that many people can study it. Because most astronomical objects are very remote, the light we receive from them is rather feeble. But by using a telescope as a camera, long time exposures can be made. In this way, objects can be photographed that are 100 times too faint to be seen by just looking through a telescope.